What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? Insert catchy title here. I didn't come up with one for this this episode.
I mean, I feel like the vulnerable seats this fall. Yeah. Stay tuned.
Are you vulnerable?
Yeah, and there's a lot of seats that are.
There is. It is going to be a close one in Congress in November. We have, unfortunately, bad news. Democrats are almost certainly going to lose the Senate. It's hard to really imagine a path where we keep it.
Yeah, there's 20 seats that are currently democratically held that are being ran for again, and only 10 Republican seats. So, like, even just playing the numbers game, like, it's just very unlikely that we'll win it.
And of the 10 most vulnerable seats of those 30 Senate races,
yeah, there's a lot of states that are, like, very lightly leaning Democrat or are basically a 50-50.
So of the 10 most vulnerable seats, 8 of them belong to Democrats. So 80% is a rough number just to start with.
Right. Yeah, some of those are more likely to happen than others, but still, even hitting 8 out of 8 on that would be...
Well, and we're at, what, a 1-2 seat?
We're basically tied right now. Right. I think Kamala is the tiebreaker, and that's the only reason.
No, I think we got 1 or 2 seat.
If you count the independents.
Sure, so like Bernie Sanders, because he caucuses with Democrats, would be considered.
Right, I think it's like 44 and 45, but it's really close.
It's very close. So losing even a net loss of a couple seats, we'll lose the Senate. So we're in a rough spot, but we do have some good news, some silver linings in that. Is one of the most vulnerable seats in November is Raphael Ted fucking Cruz. He's
Lion Ted.
Lion Ted. He's
sorry about that.
He's just you got to get into it, you know. Wasn't it his wife who was really ugly too?
She's not that ugly, though.
I know, but
yeah.
Anyway, Ted Cruz has had some closer calls than he should for a Texas senator, a Republican Texas senator, in the past, especially in polling, and he's always managed to hang on. So I always take it with a little bit of a grain of salt because I'm always hoping that we're going to see Ted Cruz unemployed after an election, and he's held on. Yeah. But this year he's being challenged by Colin Allred, who's a very moderate Democrat, way more moderate than I would like. He's not somebody who I'd be excited to vote for, but Texans love that shit, you know?
Sure.
And then he's also a former NFL player, and Texans really love that shit. Like,
yeah, who did he play for? What did he do?
I did a whole. I should know, but I did a whole.
Well, you probably didn't focus too much on the NFL.
No,
side of
I brought it up, but I didn't care. It wasn't Texas. I do know that, but he did play football, and Texans.
Oh, linebacker for Tennessee Titans for a couple years. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that'll resonate with them. He's pretty moderate. Does definitely not swing too far to the left. So I have hopes. I'm cautiously optimistic.
If he's on the pro-abortion or pro-choice side, I think that's all Texas needs right now. Like anything to try to fight against the craziness of the laws that are being passed.
And he is pro-choice. I mean, you basically can't be a Democrat. Nobody's going to let you run on the Democratic ticket and not be pro-choice. So
even in Texas.
So he's I'm optimistic for him. And let's be honest, nobody likes Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz doesn't even like Ted Cruz. Like nobody fucking likes Ted Cruz. So the fact that nobody likes Ted Cruz and Colin Allred has some aspects I think that'll appeal to Texas is good. I'm very hopeful.
Millennial too.
Yeah.
41 years old.
Yeah. Well, technically
83.
Yep. He'd be a millennial.
Yeah.
God.
So it's a double whammy.
It is a double whammy. I'm excited. If Texas flips a senator, I will have a party just because if Texas starts going blue on any federal statewide races, I will be very happy.
Yeah, we should send him a gift.
Also, more good news is Florida Senator and former host of Tales of the Crypt, Rick Scott, is looking fairly vulnerable as well. I did a political figure episode on this person, and I always butcher her name, Debbie Murkisel Powell. We're just going to go with Debbie.
Yeah.
She is younger. I think she's a millennial as well, or younger X, Spanish-speaking candidate. It's a very heavy Spanish district. And the thing that I think, which is going to give her an edge, but I think the thing that's going to give her an even bigger edge over her White Walker opponent, who does not speak Spanish, is they put codifying bodily autonomy, abortion rights on the ballot. And
oh, sure. So that'll bring out potentially a lot of people.
And so a woman on the ballot who you have basically a women's rights issue on the ballot, a Spanish-speaking person in a heavily Hispanic district.
Yeah.
I have hopes. Rick Scott's another one who, despite being completely unlikable by everybody and has the personality of wet blanket that smells like urine, he manages to always put in the legwork and slip through for a re-election, and I don't know how he does it, because the man literally gives me nightmares just looking at him.
Yeah, let's see. What I don't even know what he really looks like. The name sounds familiar.
He was the former governor of Florida. He's like 7 feet tall, really skinny, bald, eyes bulging out of his head.
He looks like what would be the real life version of the Marvel dude that has the red face and the no nose. But like if he was the actor version and then Rick Scott was like the real life version, and that was a film about his life, that's who he looks like.
Yeah, I can see that. Bat Boy, he gets a lot of if you ever Google Bat Boy, he gets a lot of shit for looking like that guy too.
Oh, Bat Boy Rick Scott. Yeah, there's the eyes. It's all in the eyes.
It's the crazy eyes. But yeah, so there's some hope there. Turning Florida a little bit more blue and Texas a little bit more blue. The fact that that's where their most vulnerable candidates are is promising for some reason, or for multiple reasons. But then those are the only two, and vulnerable Democrats at the moment. John Tester in Montana. He's the incumbent. He's held the seat for a long time. He has a pretty Montana brand,
sure.
A very Montana vibe that has gotten him reelected in a similar way to, I think, Joe Manchin in West Virginia. But again, we're losing Joe Manchin, which big fucking loss there. But that's probably going to be a guaranteed flip come November.
Yeah, I have a lot of smarter people than I rated Montana as a toss-up for that race. And just in general. So fingers crossed. Not super likely, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a decent chance that he'll hold his seat. He has. It's just Montana has become less and less friendly to anybody with a D on their title.
Yeah.
Same with Ohio. Sherrod Brown. He's managed to hold that seat and has been a very tenacious senator for Ohioans, even as they've gotten more conservative. Sadly, Ohio has gotten redder and redder as the years have gone by.
Is there any Ohio ballot measures this 2024?
I don't know, because they did their ballot measures. I mean, they shoved them into that like off-cycle, off-election year to try to make them not pass, and they did. So Ohio is turning up, and I've got hopes for Ohio that they're going to.
Yeah, looks like they got a minimum wage increase for $15 an hour, so that's pretty awesome.
That could be good.
Constitutional legal rights relating public safety, prohibiting qualified immunity, whatever the fuck that means. Something with law enforcement. Then they have a redistricting. Replace the current Ohio Redistricting Commission with a citizen-led commission. So that's huge. If you're in Ohio, definitely take a look at that and understand that citizen-led commissions are the future for allowing us to continue to have democracy,
Yeah.
essentially. And then there's some sort of various changing to elections and voting. So there's some stuff. Nothing like a crazy hot button topic, but some
minimum wage might drive some younger voters out too, which is always helpful, obviously, when it comes to retaining seats for Democrats.
Absolutely.
Jackie Rosen of Nevada. Nevada's kind of one of those states. It tends to be a blue state on a national race, which I think both Hillary and Biden won Nevada.
Sounds right. Yeah.
So it's leans Democrat. It's not necessarily a guarantee that he'll hold it, but if he's one of the slightly safer ones that's considered vulnerable. But then we get into a couple interesting ones here. Bob Casey in Pennsylvania. This one has been another tenacious senator who has been able to kind of beat the odds in a trending red area. But he's running against businessman Dave McCormick, who is from Connecticut, lives on the Gold Coast in Connecticut. It's one of the highest concentrations of wealth in the country, and he just happens to own a house in Philadelphia as well.
Well, it's a classic. Apparently, people just love doing this shit in Pennsylvania. They're like, Dr. Oz. Now it's David McCormick. I know it happens elsewhere, but it's just funny that it's happened two times in a row
in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Also, does anybody ever just get him confused with is it McCormick, or does all the spices and herbs and stuff? Yeah, that's what I thought. Apparently, that's not him at all. But
I think it's a fairly common last name.
I just assume
farm equipment too.
Rich people and McCormick,
I mean, he's a CEO or something. So
CEO of Bridgewater Associates, one of the world's largest hedge funds. It's nothing like having a hedge fund CEO as your senator.
Yeah.
Love it.
What could go wrong there?
Yeah, I can't see anything.
So hopefully that's not a great look. I'm hoping. But just sort of repeating that trend, Tammy Baldwin in our neighboring state of Wisconsin is considered fairly vulnerable. And some people may have heard about this. She's running against a businessman from California who is transplanting to run in this race, and Eric Hovde, some stupid fucking name.
Sure.
And he's obviously tons of his own wealth. He's financing the majority of his own campaign, as I'm assuming Dave McCormick is as well.
Right.
And this is what Republicans have been doing, is finding somewhat vulnerable seats and then finding rich people and just transplanting them there to run for those seats where they can self-finance and do this. And this should be, if you're in Pennsylvania or in Wisconsin, this should be incredibly alarming to you. You do not want businessmen from a different state coming in to represent you. That's just not a cool thing to do. And you're not going to have your interests very well represented.
Yeah. I mean, I will say the name Tammy has been ruined for me by Parks and Rec, and how many wives Ron Swanson has that have Tammy in the name. It's sort of, just makes it tough. But I'll root for her this time.
I think Tammy Baldwin has been a good senator. Obviously, when it comes to the Palestine stuff, that tends to throw a little bit of a wet blanket on lots of the people that I normally support, but you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and the alternatives are never any better. So you need to take it with a grain of salt this election, unfortunately, I think. But Tammy has been a pretty strong fighter for union rights and progressive causes kind of across the board. And I think Wisconsin's really lucky to have her. So I'm hoping that she retains that seat. And like I said, the Palestine thing is obviously something we need to keep fighting on. But
yeah. I mean,
it's one of those things. It's
as long as the president is maintaining, his current stance, the large majority of Democrats are not going to do so.
And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because we really need some more accountability with this, and we don't have the levers to do that. But
so the Republicans are trying to do the whole. I don't know if you've heard about this. There's like a movement to have black people move back down to the South in order to help, like, just like create their own sort of like voting block down there. Yeah, it's called. So there's a documentary on HBO. It's called South to Black Power. I watched it a couple months ago, and there's a couple books out there. And
Republicans are doing this?
No, sorry, Democrats.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
First of all, Republicans wanting people to move to the South would be a little sketchy.
Right. No,
for a number of reasons,
but specifically black people for sure.
Yeah, black people.
That would be a little counterintuitive for them. But they're just doing that on an individual basis, I guess. Republicans are doing it on an individual basis, but the opposite of moving wealthy people into. That's a strategy.
It is a strategy.
I don't know how well it's paid off so far, but
I don't think it has. I think people, especially because like Rust Belt states, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, any of these states, people tend to have a very blue collar. I want somebody who's from here, who knows here, to represent me and knows my struggle type of thing.
Yeah, which,
where
makes a little bit of sense.
It does, but so like bringing in rich businessmen from California or the Gold Coast of Connecticut isn't exactly going to resonate with the factory workers and rural people of these places, and it doesn't seem like it has. But one of the things it does do is tie up, even if they're not successful, it ties up a lot of DNC resources to fight these off. And I think that even if they don't, they're hopeful that they'll flip those seats. Obviously they wouldn't be doing it if they thought there was no chance, but it's a win-win for them because even if they lose, they've burned up a bunch of resources that could have been spent on down-ballot races and other places where, we know that Republicans are fighting for school boards and like shit all the way down the ballot. The national organization is fighting for those things. So if they can burn up DNC resources to make it easier for them to slide into all of those down-ballot races, that's a win-win for them, and that's something that I think people need to be aware of because I don't think that gets enough attention.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Then we have a couple retirements coming up, including our not so favorite newly independent Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema.
I like how they changed to independent and then they're like, yeah, we're just retiring anyway. Like, what kind of fucking douche move is that? Like, I got elected as a Democrat, and in Manchin's case, I've been reelected as a Democrat for a century.
Right.
And then it's like, yeah, both of them, we're going to check out here in a few months. Let's just be an independent now. Like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Because usually, like, if you're going to make a move like that, it's usually for, like, a grift. Like, you change to Republican because you want to do the Republican grift.
Right.
And, like, do that and just, like, speak a Republican CPAC and shit. But to independent, it feels like, why
and to independent and then to not rerun because like I could see Manchin switching to an independent because his seat feels shaky in a trending redder, not even trending, a very red state.
True, right.
And saying I'm going to run as an independent to cut those ties and that association with the Democratic Party.
Sure, if he feels like he has enough money and support individually that he doesn't need the Democratic Party. Yeah, that's something. I don't, obviously that didn't feel that way, or he's just like, oh, I'm done now.
Well, yeah, but he's just retired. Same with Kristen Sinema. They're like, I'm independent now, and now I'm retiring. And it makes, like, I'm like, what was the point? But whatever. They do them. We're going to be rid of them both come November because they're both retiring, Manchin and Sinema. And obviously West Virginia there's almost no chance that seat will retain a Democrat at this point. No. West Virginia elected Joe Manchin, not a Democrat. That was their shtick.
And also notable retiree Mitt Romney.
Yeah, I saw that, but that'll definitely be helped. But it'll be sad because I'm sure it's going to be a more batshit Republican.
Yeah, Utah's I think pretty far up there these days. I think he's probably one of the most moderate Republicans still existing, or where it was, I guess.
Yeah, so The only bad thing about him retiring is that's just one less voice of reason within the Republican Party.
Yeah, which they could use a few of those.
Yeah, they need a few more. But then, yeah. And then Cinema, I do think that we have a good chance of retaining her seat in Arizona.
Beating out Carrie Lake.
Yeah, Carrie, like, fucking conspiracy TV nut job. I mean, she's the perfect Republican candidate.
Right.
Like,
yeah. I mean, and she even gets a lot of support from Trump. So it's like.
But Arizona is a relatively moderate Republican state. Obviously, it's trended blue. Their fucking last senator. Why am I? McCain, John McCain.
Yeah.
You know, one of the most moderate Republicans, I think, in historical terms that you're ever going to see.
Probably.
And running against Carrie Lake is Ruben Gallego. He is, and I'm saying that wrong. It's said with a Hispanic accent. I'm not even gonna try.
Gallego?
Gallego, yeah, something like that. You don't pronounce the L's. He's a vet, combat vet, I'm fairly certain, and he's been a Arizona state legislator, and has quite a bit of experience passing legislation, actually advocating for the people of Arizona. He's got a little bit of name recognition down there. I think that veteran status, considering, you know, John McCain held the seat not in recent memory, definitely has some a pretty good chance. People don't seem that enthused about Carrie Lake, so.
I mean, yeah, obviously she lost. What did she run for last time? Like Secretary of State or something like that.
Yep, and she lost that. So I don't know. I'm confident or optimistic. I shouldn't say confident. I'm optimistic. It's a somewhat vulnerable seat, but I'm optimistic that we'll retain it.
So the Senate has a long road to retaining even a modicum of the same.
I like I said, it's moderate your expectations now. We probably won't maintain control of the Senate.
The best case probably is maintaining a tie and then having, obviously, hoping for a Democratic presidency, so we get the tiebreaker. Probably best case.
That is probably the best case, and I'm still not even optimistic that we will do that.
It's still a bit of a long shot.
However, the House is looking a bit brighter.
Okay.
Republicans hold a pretty narrow margin right now. I think by the time November rolls around, because we had like a random retirement, there's going to be a seat filled and whatnot. I think it's going to be 19-14 with Republican led going into November. So Dems need to net like 3-ish seats.
Okay.
And that would be a Dem controlled House. That said, we've had some redistricting in the past couple of years.
Yeah, a couple states got knocked down. A couple states got affirms. North Carolina being one of the affirms, I believe, and then Alabama being one of the ones that were discussed.
Yep. So we should pick up a couple seats in Alabama. North Carolina, that's done. There's one competitive seat left in North Carolina. That's Ron Davis.
I believe it.
And that's North Carolina's not looking good. They gerrymandered the fuck out of that state. But there is 17 Republicans currently representing districts that Biden won. And there's only 5 Democrats currently representing districts that Trump won in 2020.
Right. And that's a fairly good indicator. Obviously, it's not a for sure thing.
It's not perfect.
But that is a good indicator of a national, run.
So I won't go like super into detail, but I picked out the 7 races that I think are the ones to keep the eye on the most for competitive races that could flip one way or the other. Mike Lawler is New York's 17th district. He's a Republican. The redistricting there, his last race was a pretty tight one, and then it was redistricted to be even slightly less favorable to him than 2022.
Okay.
Mike Garcia, also Republican in a more liberal state. California is 27th. I think redistricting hurt him slightly as well. Ron Davis, North Carolina. We just talked about him. North Carolina's 1st district. It's a toss-up. They had to gerrymander the Democrats somewhere, so he has a little bit of hope there, but it's rough. North Carolina's a rough spot. I would not want to be a Democrat in that state right now. Mary Glusenkamp Perez.
You did better than I thought you were going to with that one.
Did you look up how to say it?
No, I was just like, that's going to be a fun one to listen to.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I just copied and pasted that one in there. I didn't even type it when I was I was writing. Democrat. Washington's 3rd. Washington tends to be one of those states that kind of borderlines, runs the more moderate scope on the left side.
Yeah, Washington. It is a fairly safe Democrat state on the national level, but when
congressional districts.
Yeah,
obviously.
when you get out in those more rural areas, then again you're going to see more variability.
That's one of those potential losses for Democrats. John Duarte.
I just think of Duterte in the Philippines. It's like probably not as bad of a guy. I'm assuming
He's a Republican.
True.
From California's 13th. Once again, California's districts tended to skew a little bit more favorable to Democrats this election, while the nationwide trend skewed more favorable to Republicans. Anthony Desposito. Yeah.
Anybody? Justin Bieber? I don't know the words.
Oh, I thought you were going with Despacito.
The song.
Yeah.
Yes. Isn't it Justin Bieber?
No, it's some Spanish-speaking rapper. I mean, I think Justin Bieber did like a duet with him or something.
I'm
after
pretty
the
sure
fact.
it's Justin Bieber. I could be wrong, but
anyway, that's Republican from New York's 4th. That one is going to be a very tight race, and then Brandon Williams from New York's 22nd. So those are the ones the most risky, highest chance of flipping seats that we have out there.
all right, you're right about Justin Bieber. He's just in a remix version of it.
Yeah. I told you, like, none of the words, I don't speak Spanish, so I never knew any of the words. I did do, if you typed in like Google Translate the song and then like did the voice so it'll speak it to you. It's one of the funniest things you can do is just have Google Translate sing Despacito to you. It's worth your time. You should give it a try. Anyway, you had notable retirements on here. I've been talking a long time, so let me drink.
No, I wish I could give you more time. We already discussed the 3 that I think are notable. Basically, everybody else is nobody I've ever heard of. Legitimately, I don't know.
Ben Cardin, Tom Carper, LaFonza Butler.
Yep.
Debbie Stabnow. That's a fucking name.
Yep.
I'm sure it's like Stabanow or something, but Stabnow.
So,
I'd go with Stabnow.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think Mitt Romney leaving is a huge loss for the Republican Party, moderates. And then obviously nobody's really crying too much about Joe Manchin and Christian Sinema leaving.
No.
Other than that, it gives a little bit more opportunity for Republicans.
A more solid Republican vote in
but
West
if
Virginia.
they're not going to help us, then they're against they're against any like actual positive reforms anyway. So, not to say that again, like we're not like pro-Democrat in the sense that we actually like want like the Democrats to be in power because they have good and they do good things, but just because the shitty lesser evil shit.
Yeah.
It's
sucks.
It's the unfortunate reality. Well, it's not even. I think it's important to say it at least once because people will take what you're saying and think differently, but also it's the parties are the same, but they're not the same, and we've talked about it all the time. They will not in the current political system. The Democrats will not make substantive change in any way that's really meaningful right now.
Right.
Even if they have more power. I don't or even when they try, like
Mm-hmm.
Joe Biden with the student loan stuff,
Yeah.
it's just not going to work. So if it doesn't work and you don't really actually try to do
Mm-hmm.
anything, then just don't be autocratic, I guess, and you'll get my
Yeah.
vote.
Yeah.
It's
That's
fucking
I mean, that's
stupid.
really what the lines come down to is like, can we just not do the Nazi thing? That would be great. Like,
Right?
just
Can we not try to become authoritarians while denouncing anybody who says they are pro-socialism because they don't want to be authoritarian? Like,
and at that point, that's what it's doing. It's buying us time to work on the problems that we need to
yeah,
change, and and not throw more
the
minorities
Democrats aren't
and
actively trying to take away your rights. So, like, in
yeah.
that sense, like, yeah, they're definitely
Mm-hmm.
better. But, like,
And they're not trying to demonize at-risk communities and that sort of
yeah.
thing. So like it's trying to keep the people that are most at risk safe and buy us time to hopefully make the substantial changes we want to make. And it's frustrating and it's exhausting. But on that note, I don't know if anybody the day we're recording this, you'll hear this at a later date, but my political figure episode was the congresswoman. I can say congresswoman, the only congresswoman from Alaska, because they've got one district,
Sure.
which is a gigantic fucking district. Can you imagine the entire state of Alaska is one congressional district?
That doesn't surprise me.
I mean,
but,
there's like 750,000 people that live there,
right,
so
we could fit them all
Mhm.
into Minneapolis.
Right, exactly. But it's just like, can you imagine how daunting of a task that would be as a representative to try to serve people that are that spread out?
I mean, to be fair, the people living in Anchorage, I don't think are like living a crazily different life than like Fairbanks or Juneau.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then
But there's a lot of rural, like
a
rural
lot,
native
but
communities
they're,
out there.
they're really small.
That's true. Yeah. But anyway, I did my political figure episode on her today. And what I've been trying to do, so normally I go and I take requests from my comments and I do political figure episodes on those people because I'm trying to give the people what they want.
Right,
I'm an
you're a
entertainer.
people pleaser.
Yeah, exactly. But we're in an election year, and I'm trying to use my platform, responsibly. And so what I've been doing is trying to highlight specifically people that are running for re-election or election in this upcoming in November, and specifically highlight people who are at risk, where you have some path forward to change in this election, and trying to educate people on those. And so that's how I came across her. I never knew about her. Nobody's ever that I've seen requested her in the comments, and obviously I miss a lot of comments, and I apologize to everybody who I don't get to your stuff, but I try. And so I just kind of went into it, and I've been reading through these people's bios, and I loved every second of this because she's a Democrat from Alaska, which is already kind of a rare thing. It's a very red state.
Yeah. Well, it's a very rural state, so
rural red state, yeah. And so her seat's obviously considered competitive for that reason. It's a statewide race, which is rare for a congressional race. So they have a lot of ability. There's no gerrymandering that can go on in Alaska.
When the whole state is a district, it's a gerrymandering proof. We should all do what Alaska's done.
But I was reading about how she got to where she is, and I loved every moment of it. Not because she tends to skew pretty moderate on a lot of things, which makes sense for an Alaska Democrat, and obviously
sure.
me singing the praises of a moderate is not a normal thing to do. But first, she was elected via ranked choice voting, which is huge.
Oh, as like the potentially like third candidate or whatever.
Well, no.
Like,
So she ran as the Democrat in a ranked choice voting election. So like,
was she the only Democrat, or
yeah, she was a Democrat. I think there was 2 Republicans and an
two
independent.
Republicans. Got it.
But they had it was a tiered election, and it was a special election, and then she had to go back in a couple months and get reelected in a general election again. So she's gotten elected twice. It was through ranked choice voting, and it was really interesting because she received like 49% of the vote once they'd gone through their kind of like tiered elimination process.
Yeah.
To 43% 3% of the vote or something. But then once it was calculated for her second choice, she was like 55% of the vote.
Sure. Nice.
So it was awesome to see a conservative state doing this, because obviously it's usually progressive states that are pushing for ranked choice voting, because if you allow people to elect the people that they want to represent, you Republicans tend not to win those elections.
Yeah, it's weird how sometimes the extremes aren't everybody's first choice. Weird.
So I loved that. I thought that was awesome. And then I found it really interesting because I noticed that their senator, Lisa Miskowski, I don't know. Lisa. Their senator, Lisa, the federal senator, endorsed her, and she's a Republican. And I was like, that is a weird thing. So I started digging into it a little bit more. And it turns out that earlier in her career, Mary, so Lisa was the incumbent. She lost her primary bid for re-election. So she lost her primary bid as a Republican. Democrats probably not going to compete on a national scale. And Mary saw this and was like, I think that Lisa better represents the people of Alaska. And she organized and led a write-in campaign for Lisa to run as a Republican. And Lisa won and has held the seat ever since. And I was like, that's something that we should really be exploring a little bit more as a practice, because again, the primaries, the extremes of the base tend to have outweighed say in who wins a primary.
Yeah.
And then those people are put on, and you have all of the moderates and centrists that lean to whatever side of that party wins the primary. And they're like, I'm going to probably vote for this person with this letter in front of their name regardless. But they're, nobody wants a fucking Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? Like that's a very rare. But if Democrats are the devil and Marjorie Taylor Greene is just fucking embarrassing in your head or something like that,
right?
How cool would it be if we had, it wouldn't even matter the party side. You had party support of candidates that were the opposition party in districts or races that you had no hope of winning, right? So like a very solid red, or let's say a very solid red district, a Marjorie Taylor Greene district. And the Democrats go in and say, we'll provide support and resources to a more moderate Republican that will be bipartisan as a write-in candidate, and provide that option. It's not even really splitting the vote, because when a Democrat gets 10% of the vote in a district, you can split the vote very easily between two Republicans and still give people an option to vote for the person that's going to best represent them, or vice versa. Think like Nancy Pelosi, right? Like most Democrats would probably be like, yeah, I'd probably rather have somebody other than Nancy Pelosi in this district at this point,
right?
And progressives definitely would, and conservatives absolutely would love that. So you could take the conservatives and the progressives and get them together and say, hey, let's go for a different candidate. We're going to run a write-in campaign as a Democrat, because that's the only person who's going to win here, but somebody who's willing to work for the issues of the constituents in that area,
or at least promote them in the primary stages, and then whatever, stop supporting them, but like getting them on the primary instead of Nancy Pelosi or somebody else. I like that. It's some political gamesmanship.
Well, that's honestly why I like the write-in idea even more than just the primary idea, because like let them primary themselves, but if you're ending up with candidates, or if it's just a district, let them primary and then go in and negate the primary, basically. And that's giving you, in a sense, a third-party candidate that's viable, because it's still a party candidate. You're still going to have people who like let's put it this way, to put it on like just a national perspective. What if the Democrats put some resources, kind of the same way that the Republicans are putting resources into RFK? What if Democrats put some resources into Nikki Haley and say, hey, run as a Republican. We would rather have you as president because you would be more bipartisan. So we will put some resources into supporting you as a candidate make sure that you're on the ballots and you can run and you can say you're Republican and do what you want to do and give people the option. How many moderates and not completely batshit conservatives would be like, I would love to vote for Nikki Haley in the election rather than Donald Trump? And
yeah, I mean, I just don't, especially for president.
President was obviously a very pie in the sky idea,
Right.
and a little different than a congressional district that is solidly, or a governor in a state that's very solidly red or blue.
I could definitely see that being viable for something like that. For president, people think it's the end all be all, and
it's a very 50-50 thing. It's not a solidly red or blue race. It's it could go either way every election, and
and there's no chance a write-in or third party wins a presidential election. It's statistically basically impossible. There's like a 99% chance you're not going to win as a third party.
Oh, and I use that as an example just as like a big picture thing.
Sure.
But if you took these really solid red or blue districts and just gave people the option to have, you're basically making it a two-party system in a one-party district.
Yeah, and I think
one-party
ranked
race.
choice voting definitely helps make something like that happen. Without it, it's less viable, but as more states start adopting ranked choice voting,
what I was saying with the Senate race, and this is why they did that without ranked choice voting. She got a senator to win a write-in race.
I thought they were both from Alaska.
They are. So Mary is a congressperson.
Yeah.
But this was before ranked choice voting was implemented. This was back in 2011 or 12. I don't know. It was before they put ranked choice voting.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know that Alaska does ranked choice voting for Senate or not. I haven't looked into that.
I think it's everything except for president.
Oh, that's awesome. Anyway, I don't know. And then on top of that, Mary, with the ranked choice voting, defeated Sarah Palin. So ranked choice voting prevents Sarah Palin's.
Yeah, I remember Sarah Palin was all crazy and up in arms about ranked choice voting, and it's like, it's statistically, it's mathematically, it works the same for everybody. Yeah. So like, you lost.
You lost because you suck, not because the system's rigged against you.
But also, I just couldn't. I started to glaze over how many times we're having to say Mary and Lisa. It just.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I get that. I get that. I don't know. I just think. I think that there is a lot of progress to be made, not necessarily in picking up seats, but in increasing the representation of constituents and depolarizing and increasing bipartisanship within Congress. Because if you have somebody who is at least willing to work to get shit done, because that's. This party helped support me to get my seat. I was chosen to do that because I best represent my constituents in this district or in this race, this state, whatever. I'm willing to come to the table and work on getting bills passed to make shit happen, because the gridlock has been the biggest problem. You can't compromise with anybody on anything, or you're, a rhino, and you. Now we've got to fire the Speaker of the House for some reason again, and
no shit.
And so if we could prevent the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and Lauren Boeberts and all of those things from getting into Congress, and again, and I keep pointing this. Obviously, I'm more progressive, and I push this from a Democrat point of view to Republicans, but you could turn it around, and that's why I brought up Nancy Pelosi. And I know that there's tons of very solidly Democrat held seats that end up being very corporate Democrat incumbents that sit there forever.
Like a Dianne Feinstein,
exactly.
For one. It's like a lot of Democrats wanted somebody else on that seat for a long time. Don't have a choice.
And so could you imagine if the Republican Party came in and said, hey, we'll help this Democrat get elected if they promise to kind of work with us on these policies? And then great. So they help finance a little bit of the campaign, get a little bit of that out, throw a little bit of support behind this person for a write-in campaign for a congressperson or a senator or a governor or anything. You can win write-in campaigns at those levels if you have the right support and name recognition.
True.
So I don't know. I thought it was a good idea. I was all excited about it when I brought it up.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's an interesting point, and I'd be interested to see what a political strategist would have to say, like somebody like Marge, in the DFL, and see if they've considered. I mean, I would have thought like they would have done all the game theory tactics type things that this kind of.
You would think that, and then they gave us Hillary Clinton.
Well, yes,
as our nominee. So.
Yeah, no,
They gave us the one person that could lose to Donald Trump. I have lost a lot of faith in their ability to figure out the political gamesmanship.
Yeah.
And they followed that up with Joe Biden.
Yeah, but that's different than like the game theory behind like who to support in elections. I think it's different.
Is it different though?
The Democrats choosing the wrong person, that's just like them being idiots. I don't know, like that doesn't have anything to do with the strategy.
But it does have to do with the strategy because you have to appeal to certain outliers. They spend so much time appealing to the base, right? Like, who are the moderate Democrats going to support?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a somewhat ridiculous notion. I mean, that's part of the problem with the primary system as a whole, because you have to pander to a base that doesn't represent the votes you need, because those people are going to vote for you no matter what in the general. So you're letting the people whose votes you don't really need to give a shit about pick the person who is going to run in the general, who then can't appeal to the votes you do actually need to give a shit about. I mean, that's kind of been my frustration with the Democratic Party, is they spend so much time focusing on moderates and don't give a fuck about progressives. But they need the progressives who tend not to turn out. They need the youth who tend not to turn out. They need all of the people that they ignore in the primary season to turn out in the generals.
Well, I mean,
and that's political gamesmanship. I feel like that's
I don't think it's political gamesmanship. I think it goes back to what I was saying with them just not representing working class people.
Yeah, that's also true.
They're just never. They're the reason why they don't care about progressives and the left is because they're not represented by them. You know, they care more about moderates, and they care about more people who are going to give them money to run on that platform. I don't even know if it's their strategy to pick those people. It's just they have their interests in mind and not the actual, a large majority of people who care about, working class people. I don't think they have those people in their minds when they're choosing their candidates,
Yeah,
It's probably somewhere in between that, but
I'm sure it is. It's just to win, you have to put a candidate forward that people want to vote for, right?
But they also love like just barely winning, so that they can't actually do the things that they say they were going to do while primarying to pander to the progressive left, and so it's just like this cycle that we keep getting into.
Yeah. But then again, going back to what I was talking about originally here is aiding people who can work on bipartisanship. I guess I don't know if they want bipartisanship. Maybe they don't. Maybe you're right all around. I was just if you had
I like what you're like. I like what you're saying. It just from our perspective as like people who actually want to reform our government. I don't know. Like it feels like it's just a circle around moderates and independents.
It's a circle around moderates and independents in areas where the extreme takes hold.
Yeah.
But the thing is, where the extreme takes hold on the left is the moderates, right? Like the Nancy Pelosi.
There is no extreme left in office. Bernie Sanders and AOC are the most extreme, and they are just your standard progressives. Like they're not the extreme left that everybody like Seth talks about.
But like so where I'm looking at the benefits of this approach, if we could figure out how to implement that kind of approach, is for us as progressives, the people that would be the most vulnerable to being unseated in these situations are the corporate party line, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Dianne Feinsteins, the people that a lot of people on the left have an interest in seeing replaced with somebody under 200 years old. And and not so engrossed in the party system and the political system. But on the right, focusing around moderates is a good thing. So on the left, focusing on those people, we would be ousting the moderates for people who would be different, if nothing else. You know what I mean? But on the right,
so I think it would be the opposite. I think it would be the Republicans would help people run against AOC and Bernie, and we would help people run against MTG. And I think the biggest thing that would happen is just the Overton window shrinks.
And you probably do have a point there. I guess I was looking at it as, I don't know. AOC is really popular in her district. Ilhan Omar is your district, very popular. Very popular in their district.
Unpopular outside of their district,
right? But they're there to represent the people of their district, so exactly. Fuck them. But and maybe Nancy Pelosi is super popular in California's 11th. I don't know.
One way to find out, Nancy Pelosi. the Google machine,
the Googlies. And maybe she is super popular there, and that's why. But a lot of these people just win on incumbency, over and over again, and party power behind them. I mean, they throw a lot of money at Nancy Pelosi to keep Nancy Pelosi as Nancy Pelosi, and the woman's like, I think she's as old as fucking Joe Biden now. She's running for re-election again too. Like,
yeah, she went to high school in '58, so she would have born in like 1940-ish.
Yeah, I think she's 84-ish or something. I like how what you have pulled up currently is when she went to high school, but not usually her age is right at the top of the page.
I didn't go to Wikipedia. I went to Ballotpedia because I wanted to know what her last race results were, and Ballotpedia is a better resource.
Oh, yeah.
The general election.
The general election, it's a fucking landslide. It's like 80%.
Yeah,
or
she
something.
got 84%.
But in the primary is what would be interesting to know.
So the last primary. So they have a nonpartisan primary, I guess.
Okay.
And she got 71%. Next person got 10, and then another Democrat got 10. So, and then the most recent one, she got 73, and nobody else got above 10, including Republicans or Democrats.
Maybe she is that popular in her district, but again, maybe it's
she's got. Let's see, how much money does she have to her name right now? $88 million net worth apparently as of 2012.
Okay.
So that 10 years added to that, I'm sure well over 100 million at this point. So she's not your average Democrat.
Right. And she's got obviously the name recognition, party power, and all of that.
Well, yeah, she's been like Speaker of the House for like every single time.
Every time Democrats have held the House, she's been Speaker since I think before I was fucking born.
She told Steny Hoyer to suck it, and then was like, "Yep, I'm doing it." And now she's been doing it.
And maybe you're right. Maybe it would just they would probably
the thingy. Oh, there you go, helping out all you live people.
Yeah, sorry guys if you had a momentary block there. Yeah, for everybody listening on the podcast, we've been doing the lives in the background here, and it requires me to verify that we are still live every once in a while because I'm not really interacting with it. Unfortunately, I'm not multitasking well. I don't multitask well enough to interact.
On a good day.
Yeah, on a good day. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you're right. They would go after the AOCs and the.
Yeah, I guess just from this brief conversation and think about it, I feel like the main end point is just going to be a shrinking of the Overton window.
Yeah.
And that still doesn't actually help the progressive cause.
No, you're right.
Unless you can also get it to shift to the left because there's less extreme rights and you just win that battle.
And honestly, I guess that is part of where I see a lot of that
some potential
issue that we have is that there is an extreme wing of the right
who has a huge amount of political power.
A huge amount of political power, and they use that political power to make sure to break the system. That's what they consistently do is
stop the government.
Make sure nothing gets done. The government's broken, and I'm going to prove it to you by making sure it's as broken as it can possibly be. Right. And, we've seen it on full display with their fucking Speaker of the House bullshit and their immigration bill. I want to say bullshit. I'm glad they didn't pass it, but it was a fucking Republican wish list immigration bill, and they're like, nope. Not going to do that. We gave you everything you wanted. Yeah, but if Joe Biden's going to be the one who signs it, we can't give him that win because then we can't bitch about the border and him not doing anything anymore. So
it would have been a disaster for Democrats, but it also is like something we can point to now.
Right, exactly. And so getting those people, purging those people from the system so we could get a functional government again, I think would still be a net benefit.
Yeah, probably. If they can do at least just like the bipartisan shit that we need a government to do, like antitrust laws and shit like that.
Or just pass a budget.
Right.
Elect a Speaker of the House.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess
the bar is very low right now.
The bar is quite low.
On a functioning government is just like...
Yeah. I guess it feels like it would be a lot of effort to just kind of remain the status quo as far as, everyday people's ability to exist.
But then, so if we did this and you tie strings to it, right? Like if you're going to go in and you're going to throw party money behind opposition candidate, and again, I'm looking at this from the Democratic perspective, but you tie some strings to it is we're doing this, and to help unfuck your district from making it so only the MTGs can win here, you need to support ranked choice voting when we bring this to the floor, and that sort of thing. You start tying strings to, we have these platforms that we're pretty close in the middle here, these moderate policies that we need you to work with us on. And you do that sort of thing, and you start negotiating that before these people ever get to.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it as, in that sense, a very short-term strategy to get the campaign, fixes, finance, and reforms that we talk about, because they should be bipartisan, and people wanting to get rid of
Citizens United.
Yeah, Citizens United.
You could run because
just undo financial, gain from that businesses have and influence, I guess. So I guess in that sense, I could see it. If you can tie strings to it. It's not. It's not binding, by
right?
Means,
You can't, but
you can try. I guess I don't have a problem with it in that sense. It's a strategy, and I'd be interested to hear. It would be interesting. A political strategist or somebody that has been involved with running campaigns would have to say about.
I don't know if there's any political strategist or campaign people out there listening to this. Shoot me a message. Shoot us a message, and if you'd be willing to come on and talk to us about this.
Yeah,
like I said, I came up with this yesterday.
A lot of vetting went into this.
A lot of vetting. I was super excited about it. I went on a whole tangent in my video about it. It's cool to see somebody actually doing it in real life and it working both ways, because like she helped a Republican senator retain her seat who obviously Alaskans felt was a better representative, but the base had ran away with in the primary. Yeah. And then it turned around and she was endorsed by a slew of Republicans.
Sure.
From a senator to, Republican Alaskan royalties like children and stuff because they had passed away and whatnot. And then she's gone in and she's voted very bipartisan through her entire history as, in Alaska. And she's also voted very bipartisan since she's been in Congress. It's only been a couple of years, but she's also gotten a lot done. I mean, she passed her first bill that she authored through the House, like in September of 2022, before she was still between special election and general election.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of senators on the right are getting a lot of stuff through the House right now.
This is Congress. Or
that's what I mean, yeah, Congress. A lot of Congress people are getting their right-wing agenda sort of passed through the House because it's...
But she's left-wing, and this
was... We were talking about...
No, I'm talking...
one.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Talking about...
I want to endorse the Republicans.
Yeah.
All right.
So she got that through the House right after she got in. And again, as a freshman, passing any legislation period is pretty rare.
Yeah.
And she voted for the railroad union against the Democratic Party during
yeah.
that whole deal. You know, she joined 8 Republicans or 8 Democrats, and I don't know how the Republicans didn't vote to help that any at all, but she voted against her party on it. You know, she's voted with Republicans on what is incredibly stupid gun laws that Democrats supported from the ATF. She voted, she's voted pretty moderately on immigration, but it's that kind of stuff where at least you start making the government move again. We've had the government doing nothing, and I got really excited about it because it's just cool to see a politician functioning as a public servant for once.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, and it is a cool story, and it is it gives you some feels. For sure. So I dig it. And that's something to consider, and it especially is useful in ranked choice voting settings. So, and we're getting more and more of those states promoting ranked choice voting as the years go on.
And again, I mentioned it earlier, but Alaska being one where this is demonstrated effective, and it being a red state, I think that's a big win that we should be reminding people about. Is a Republican state instituted ranked choice voting. They have a very bipartisan, a functional government from what I can see, at least from the outside looking in, from the little bit of work that I've done here. Maybe we need to start pushing this. Obviously, they're pushing back. You know, Palin was furious about ranked choice voting, and Republicans are pushing back a little bit on it. But it's promising to see that it's working in places that are not just, the liberal elite states.
Right. Well, I do have a few, just like 3 updates, current events here.
Let's do it
to discuss before we wrap up. So one big one is Biden is now giving legal protections to undocumented spouses.
Saw that.
He
had to do something after he
fucking did the executive order.
Oh my god.
Yeah, crazy order.
Wait, can we talk about that for a second? What the fuck was the purpose of that? Who is he thinking he's going to win over?
Independents who have bought in that we have this crazy overrun. Overrun, just that we have an open border policy bullshit. He can point to that and say, that's a propaganda, that's lie, that's that's not based in reality. It's obviously anybody who knows anything about immigration and isn't like fucking weird
partially
about it,
brain dead,
understands that it's not good for anybody. It's not going to help the people that are trying to cross in any meaningful way. So
I wonder. I mean, obviously with him sort of falling short on climate policy,
well, that's why he's losing all the young voters and all the progressives.
Falling short on climate policy and really just fucking up with the Gaza thing at every turn. And he's like, you know what I should also do is let's just fuck the immigration policy as well. That'll really bring him around.
And it is so a little bit mind-numbing with Gaza because all he has to do is not give military funding and say that he's doing everything to work with both sides to create peace. And that's a W.
Yeah, that's all he had to do.
But no, he's like, we're going to send hundreds of millions of dollars, of billions of dollars.
And then he's like, if you attack Rafah, I might stop. And then they attack Rafah, and he's like, okay, well, maybe just a little bit more.
Right, yeah. So
I really can't wrap my head around it. And I don't know, the response from Party Democrats. I'm in a group of Democrat social media creators. That's about branding because Democrats have a horrible issue with branding, and so I got invited to this to kind of like brainstorm about ways we can improve that. And I brought that up, that it gets really frustrating having to sell why you should still vote for Biden to progressives, because I'm a progressive. I'm not a Democrat. Like, I am a progressive that, that's my option in the political system to vote for.
Yeah.
But I'm just as frustrated with all of these people who are like, I'm going to vote third party or whatever. I understand how the political system works a little better than most. And I'm like, I'm trying to fight this battle, and I'm like, I'm fighting it, and you guys are kicking us in the nuts for fighting your battle for you and giving us no help. Like, all you had to do is just be like, there should be a ceasefire, not while you're eating an ice cream cone. Would have been great. Like, just like ceasefire with no sweet treats involved, and then be like,
or breakfast foods.
Yeah. That would have been great. And we can't even get that. And then the response from somebody who was part of the Democratic Party somehow, I'm not exactly sure who he was, but he's like, well, doesn't bodily autonomy and like all, he starts going into all the other that are huge W's for the Democratic Party. He starts going into all those. I'm like, this is the fucking point, you dumbass. Like, yes, those things are important, but this is something that's important. And when your response is, yeah, but, and you're an idiot for not supporting it just because of this one issue that people have clearly told you is incredibly important to them.
Right.
That made me want to strangle you. Like, what? Why the fuck would that be your response? Your response should be like, I totally understand where you're coming from, and this is a very complicated, complex international issue. We do have treaties that require us to do certain levels of support to Israel, like whatever.
Yeah,
whatever the fuck it is.
It's not a helpful answer, but at least you can like
acknowledge, like, we hear why you're frustrated, and your frustration is valid. At least, like, stop. It almost feels like gaslighting at that point, and it drives me up a fucking wall. But sorry, I went on a tangent again.
No. Some immigrant protection there, which is like it's a 180 from a couple weeks ago, but whatever. It's fucking Democrats, Joe Biden. Then in some not so awesome news, Louisiana is now requiring the 10 Commandments to be displayed in every public school classroom.
The fuck?
Yes. It's a law signed by the governor of Louisiana.
Blatant violation of the First Amendment. Like, blatant violation.
Yeah, so there's going to be a constitutional challenge to the courts, obviously ran by the American Civil Liberties Union. So, yeah, I mean, it's obviously blatantly unconstitutional, but, the more stuff is happening.
But if there's anything constitutional Republicans don't give a shit about, it's the Constitution.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and then last bit of news is, Justin Timberlake drunk driving.
I heard that yesterday. Honestly,
possibly, who knows?
Making dinner, and Emily's like, oh, Justin Timberlake just got arrested for a DUI. And I'm like, why is that news?
Right, yeah.
I don't care.
Doesn't, I don't know, maybe it's just our perspective of what news is, but like it doesn't feel like news anymore.
I'm like, cool, a guy got the same charge as like 75% of the people I know. Like,
but he's famous. He's famous though.
All right. Well, I guess we've let this one run its course and then some. I think I overdid it a little bit on this one. I was just really excited. Okay.
I don't think you overdid it. I think it was a good discussion, and I'm glad we talked through it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. If you've listened through my ramblings this long and stuck with it, we appreciate you guys as always. We have merchandise on offthewagon.com. Let Them Eat Toast merchandise, as well as my own merchandise. I hope you
stickers, get some koozies, get some t-shirt, whatever, hats.
We have subscription services.
That's right. Patreon, YouTube.
We still aren't offering a ton of stuff for them yet.
Mostly it's just supporting us. There is a little bit of extra content on Patreon for some of the interviews that we do.
Yeah. And we're working on doing more. This is it's a lot of work, guys, doing this stuff.
It's a lot of work.
And so we're trying to do our best to amp that up and give you guys more content that you want and enjoy. So the more you support us, the more we're able to do that. We appreciate you sticking with us and all the support that you guys have given us so far. It's just been awesome. But yeah, go if you buy merch, that helps us. If you sign up and for the subscription services, that helps us. You can just send money to us via Venmo or PayPal. We've got all those options too, and that always helps us. But even if you can't, if you don't, everybody's in their own financial situation, and our content has different value to everybody, and we totally understand that. But we appreciate the hell out of you just sitting here and listening to what we have to
every
say.
view, every download helps. So
we absolutely love it,
around.
and it means a lot, the fact that people find what we have to say worthwhile. So that's the reason. That is the number one reason we do this. And sadly, capitalism makes us beg for money occasionally.
Right. Otherwise, we'd just be two drunks in your basement, you know? Like we were.
100%. But yeah, no, we appreciate that. And follow us on all the socials. I've been trying to do better about updating the TikTok account,
the Tic-Tac,
the Let Them Eat Toast TikTok account for just previews to these, so you guys can kind of pick a little better and remember.
Yeah, really excited about a couple of the interviews that we've recently posted. So if you haven't listened to a couple of the interviews, definitely tune into those because
we've had some great ones.
Yeah.
And we love every time we have a guest on here. I don't think we've had a bad guest yet, at least in my opinion.
No.
No, we appreciate that. I'm rambling again. I was trying to make up for we didn't have beer in the first recording today, so I was trying to make up for lost time. But we appreciate you, and we will see you guys next week.
That's right. Thanks for tuning in.
Love y'all.